So, I am in the midst of a creative crisis. There's a lot going on in my life, and it feels weird to be worrying about what challenge run I'm doing next as opposed to buying a gun and learning to protect myself and my family from the hell world we live in. But I suppose that constant mental duress and near endless panic is fitting enough for this run. The Sinking City. What a conniving whore you are. I must have started this game about 4 times. I got past the initial investigation and I just stopped. A few years back I got real into Lovecraft, but then I read At the Mountain of Madness, and it was and still is the worst piece of shit book I've ever read. So that just threw me off the whole thing, but not before I bought this game. So in combination, I watched the Zero Punctuation review of this game to get a sense of the gameplay mechanics, realized that's not what those reviews go into, binged that channel and decided on this idea. I'm not the smartest person in the world, so could I beat a detective game with almost no prior knowledge or looking anything up? I think it'd be interesting. I've got an Atom Fall video in the tank, script and all. Early on, it was a lot of me speculating on the world and what was going on, which was really fun to do. So, we're going to do this game as blind as I can, no Google, no nothing. Let's give it a shot. Given the reason that we're here, I put the investigation difficulty on Master Sleuth and combat's on normal. I'm reserving the right to shit myself when we go underwater. We're playing as Charles Reed, a detective who's suffering from a case of fucked up in the head syndrome, and is going to a place where that is just a footnote in the list of problems. Massachusetts. We were invited by a man named Johannes Vanderberg. On the boat out, Charles drinks a vial of straight mercury and has a panic attack and sees God. Typical day in Swampscott. Our man here looks like every before picture in a transition timeline. He meets the man in the yellow hat, Johannes, or if we're going by Lovecraft, he could be more of a king than a man. I mention his suit, because I'm a fan of the color myself, ain't I, Frankie? Johannes mentions a man named Robert Throgmorton, and I put that name in my back pocket. Joe gives us a map, marks a few points of interest. Doing a little running around, I found a man's will, Albert Throgmorton. If I remember right, he's the son of Robert, and is a focal point in the first quest. Ah yeah, here's the man. Robert implies that his son has gone missing, and that the Innsmouthers have something to do with it. He goes off on a diatribe on the Innsmouthers, calling them filthy migrants and says they've taken jobs proper citizens, and he calls them fish-faced, which is more literal than I thought. Also, I ask him about the visions we've been having, which he turns down until his son is found. So I accept the job. Got a couple of leads, a few bits of evidence to look into. Thank God the game gives me a recap of what conversations were about that is really useful to have. I already found the will, so went into the building where Throgmorton's son was last seen. There was a mess of blood inside, and a man having a rough day. A guy called Will Hammond. Will lived with 3 others. One of them was dead on the floor, and one of them was an Innsmouther called Lewis. One of the guys found Throgmorton's son, brought him inside, and the kid went crazy, started screaming and causing everyone else to go nuts. Here's where we learn about how the recognition mechanic works. We investigate what happened, Reed infers how it went down, and we the player piece together why, how, and when it happened. So in this instance, we learned that Albert was found, brought back here, started causing a panic, he spread his hysteria, one of the fishermen shot him, to which he then ran away. Given that there were 4 fishermen, Barry, Will, Lewis, and Paul. Paul's dead, Will and Barry are here. I can guess that Lewis, the Innsmouther, shot Throgmorton and probably chased after him. Lewis, being an Innsmouther, I can guess that when he saw a chance to shoot a Throgmorton, he took it, due to what I learned about the Innsmouther-Throgmorton feud. Given that Albert fled after he was shot, I can track him. I follow the blood, and I find Albert's body. Round through the skull, hung up on meat hooks. This wasn't an accident. It stopped being self-defense when he started to run. Given that Lewis chased him after he started to run, I figured that from the spent casings up to here, it was almost certain that Lewis killed him. And I think I know where he's hiding. Found a note with the name of a bartender and a torn bit of jacket. So, had a little chat with Peter the barkeep, and he gives up Lewis. I had Lewis give his side of what happened. He pretty much spun the same story, but he said he didn't remember what had happened, on that he just woke up in the warehouse with Albert already dead. Personally, I believe him, and I'm going off the assumption that in a detective game, your choices carry weight. So I imagine that I'm going to be dealing with a lot of the underground, so if I give Lewis up, it's going to be a signal to the Innsmouthers that I'm not to be trusted, while to Throgmorton, he'll just think I didn't find the killer. So I told Throgmorton that I found his son, dead in heaven. Reed just decided to tell him that Lewis killed his son, but that Lewis got ripped in half by the beasts around here. Quid pro quo, I now ask my questions about the madness around here. I'm gonna read the recap after this convo because somebody started tapping a fucking 70k slow burn house slash fucking Morse code in my ears and I couldn't focus. Basically, after the flood happened, people started experiencing symptoms of some kind of mental illness, visions of an old god, and voices from the depths. Typical Lovecraft stuff. So given that the mine shit happened after the flood, Throgmorton assumed that they were related and recently sent an expedition to see if they could find anything. That expedition is the one that Albert was on, and we saw how that went. Now, that all made sense, right? And it was decently explained, and I understood what was going on. You're gonna miss that, because we've hit the point that I always stop playing at. So now I've got no prior knowledge, no nothing. This is where it gets fun. Given that I have two things in my person, both being keys, I decided to go to the Devil's Wreath, the hotel that Johannes gave me a room in. On the walk there, Reed had a dream, or vision, I still don't really know which, of a large mouth, and wakes up in this room. In the room was a multitude of notes and imagery, one from Lewis Flynn thanking us, another from Johannes saying he brought us here after he fell unconscious, and another asked for help, someone in the room across is begging us for aid. Alright, let's see what's up. I'm pretty sure whoever lived here is long dead, but there are 7 notes around talking about 7 tomes that are somewhere around Oakmont. Going to the front desk, and I didn't exactly make nice with the owner of this place, but I convinced him to give me a bunch of old letters and books from prior tenants. I didn't have much else to go on, but I headed up to Throckmorton Manor, but when he didn't want to talk to me, I was kind of lost. There's a few places marked on my map, so I decided to head each one of them and see what I could see. First up at the newspaper office, the woman I met there, last name was Bland. She asked me for an interview after I told her who we were. In an effort to remember her first name, I accepted. And I gained access to the newspaper archives. Should be useful later. Next, I went to the police station, where the cops were pissed I solved the Throgmorton case and not them. They also let me use their archive. And I learned that I can't save scum, which is really bad news for me. I went to the hospital to see what's up, and the doc there offered me a chance to see some experimental medicine. It nearly drove me insane instantly. And the doc gave me a quest to investigate some of the local wild beasts. I read the note I got and found out where I was meant to be going. I myself had to find out where the expedition's HQ was on the map via the street names, and yeah, that's a very interesting game mechanic. When I went in and looked around, at first I thought there wasn't much here. Then I noticed the crows. The pale crows flying through the building, all pointed at a wall. I put my hand up against the wall, and it passed through like a mist. This opened the basement, where I found a cargo manifest and a man. The man shot at me, so I put him down. The man was part of the party that raided this place. They grabbed what they could, burned the rest, papers, archives, and he must have stayed behind to finish when he heard me come in. So as a result of that, the archive expedition is lost, but I know where they left the city from, and what kind of ship. So I might be able to find out some kind of advertisement about the expedition. Maybe a recruitment flyer or a funding request. And what do you know, we got a match. We got to talk to Captain Jeremiah Sanders, as he was the captain of the Titania, the ship that went out. When I got to where Sanders was supposed to be, the dock was flooded with wiles. Took care of him, spent too many bullets in the process, but it got done. It appears a massacre, but I was told that Sanders got away. The crew of the Titania went mad and killed each other, and one man got away. I think it was Sanders. Looks like he'd been badly wounded. So a man with an axe wound to the shoulder, I reckon he'd have to get medical help. Closest to that would be the hospital, so I'm headed there. The doc couldn't help me, but he let me look through their admittance log. I found a man called Joseph Willow. Fits all the criteria besides the name. I'm assuming he entered in under an alias. Think I found my man. Yep, he confirmed it, and then I questioned him on the expedition. So we gotta find the ship's log to know where they were diving, and we gotta get a diving suit to see for ourselves. Tracks on the seabed leading to Hysteria on the surface. What the hell could be down there? Found the logbook. They were diving just off the coast of Oakmont, a cluster of rocks called the Devil's Teeth. I'm not looking forward to diving, so let's get some other quests done. When I was doing the doctor's quests, I found out that I could lure the wild beasts out of this shop and have the people around me fight them. Also, I found a chest of infinite loot. Seriously, if I get the loot, run away, and come back, there's just more stuff. And in that building, the owner hanged himself. Dreams got too real and he had enough. I went back to the doctor with the dead man and what his notes revealed about the wiles, and the doc called them Stygians, which I've heard before, I just don't remember where. Again, I investigated a house filled with the vomiter variety of the wiles, and the doc told me they're called Lethians. Also, he gave me some more investigations. A restaurant where women don't come back from, and a large shop that shares its size with the Tors. The restaurant was serving up young women as its meals. Not in the fucked up way, in the kill 'em and eat 'em way. I guess that's also kind of fucked up, but like, the burger recipe does sound pretty good. Chef put a shotgun on me and I had to put him down, but I couldn't get the gun. Shame that. The doc believed that jumping wiles were once men turned into beasts by cannibalism. It's a pretty interesting theory. In the shop across town, I had to fight off a massive wild beast. I think they're weakest where their heart should be, but it moves around real fast for its size. Turns out a cult was disposing of bodies in this basement, and then they merged together to form that thing. With that, I finished the quest, got all the bestiary entries, and got an outfit. I met a woman in the library. Her name was Joy Hayden. She had a thing going on with her. Didn't seem to bother her too much, and she was pleasant enough, so I left her where I lied. God damn it, that's fucking funny. A man named Vince called out to me in the street, hired me to find a ship's log for a vessel called the Pride. Got it easy enough, and Vince gave me 2 more jobs that were same as the last. Time to get back to the fucking diving suit. Found one in the factory, but Reed ate it before we got a chance to use it. Remember when I reserved the right to shit myself when we got underwater? God damn it, I'm gonna shit my pants and kill my roommate when I find out what these child stars look like now. Sweet Jesus fucking Christ, I hate this shit so much. I stopped playing a 10-hour playthrough of Fallout 4 to picture of a faction because you had to go underwater at the end of Miniman questline. I had to watch RT Games playthrough Subnautica with one eye closed. I fucking hate the ocean, I hate the ocean, I hate the ocean, I hate the ocean, I hate... Oh, thank fucking God. After that ordeal, we got to a cave, inside of which a man was jumping like a rabbit, preaching God to the Martin Aphid. Some cut-up diving suits and all this. These men had gone insane, and the risk it posed to bring them near what remained of Oakmont was too great. I left them to their insanity at the bottom of the sea, knowing full well it would cause their deaths. Hello? Is this like how you can see Madeira at some points in Dark Souls 3? So I found out that the Innsmouthers that burned the papers in the basement followed the expedition here, took the artifact, and kidnapped Harriet Doe. And then I got stuck in hell. Like, I can't leave. I got all the clues, but I can't leave the cave. I think the game is bugged, but I don't know, and I can't look it up, because that'd defeat the purpose of the challenge. Well, I mean, the detective stuff is done. Like, the game is actively telling me that all the clues for the current case are found, but I just can't leave the cave. So I looked up Sinking City Cave Bug and found a Reddit thread talking about it, and there was a guy that was talking about taking pictures. I haven't used the camera once in this game, and never did I get any indication that I couldn't, that I had to. Here, fuck! Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was it. It wasn't a bug. I just had to take a picture of the daddy guy. In all fairness, Reed does say that he should show Throckmorton the symbols, so that's on me. God damn it. So no, I couldn't beat the Sinking City without looking up help. We're gonna have a counter in the corner for how many times I had to look up help, because I'm having fun with this game, so we're gonna continue, but going forward, just know that we failed. Son of a bitch, that actually makes me really angry. Like, I want to blame the game, but honestly, Reed said I gotta show Throckmorton the symbols, and I should have figured that meant take a photo, because I have a camera. It's all good. I just wish that the precedent had been set. Like, if I had to take a picture of Throckmorton's son to prove that he was dead, I've been doing side quests, and I haven't had to take a picture. But I'm never gonna forget that I have to take a picture now. Like, I'm just gonna start taking shit, whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Enough. It's fine. Reed just got the bends, and then I told Throckmorton that the expedition was lost and Harriet was stolen. Honest to hell, failing the run took the wind out of my flesh sails, but after a brief hiatus due to my computer getting its screen fixed, and some contemplating of a Mafia challenge run, we were back to this shit. God, Reed is just the most pathetic, sopping wet cat of a man. Jesus fuck. I got all the skill points to get maximum XP whenever I do anything, and then I ran in and out of the Forever Loot House, just killing the 4-armed fucks for 20 XP a pop. Good little system here. Didn't expect to be able to grind in this game, but yeah, here we are. Little side note here. I was just made aware via a PC Games article at 2 a.m. in the morning on May 14th. This game just got a fucking remaster. Like, I didn't know this was in production. I didn't know this was happening. I thought this game was, like, just something that happened. The only time I've ever, like, heard this game referenced in anything was, like, a fucking Mandalore video. And that was, like, for 3 seconds. I didn't think people knew this game existed. And one, it looks fine, so why is it getting a remaster? It works fine. It's just, like, a little buggy at some points. I don't understand why people think remasters are a necessary thing. Just make a new fucking game. Whatever. Throckmorton also gave me a quest to find out what had happened to an art dealer friend of his, so I went to do that as I really didn't know how to progress with the main story, you know? I got to the man's house. His name was Herbert Glover. Probably should have mentioned that. Inside his home I found a yellow newspaper, a letter, and a dead man. There was a mirror with multiple gunshots in it. Apparently it was what Throckmorton wanted to purchase. Also, the dead man is Herbert Glover. Given that there's a gun by Glover's corpse, I'm guessing we're dealing with a mirror monster. There's a crowbar next to an indented bit of wall in the shape of a mirror, so one of them must have been taken. But by who and why is what I don't know. So based off the recreation, it wasn't a mirror monster, as interesting as that would have been, it was just some burglars. I took what I knew to Throckmorton, and he asked me to find the man that killed Glover. During the robbery, the killer mentioned a man called Squint. If I can find him, I can find the murderer. I had no leads on where to find him, so I went to the police department to see if he'd ever been arrested. I started looking for somebody convicted of violent crimes, but the man I was looking for, Squint, he was a thief who was skilled at lockpicking, so switching to property crimes bore fruit. Philip O'Connell, sounds Irish. In his list of associates is a man named Sidney Stokes, who lives in Salvation Harbor. I was wondering why he sounded so distraught when he realized he killed Glover, but it's probably because he had only been convicted of jaywalking and jury evasion. Going to Stokes' house, I found a letter regarding his mother's burial and Squint's corpse. The old woman who killed Squint also took the mirror that he and Stokes stole, so I'm off to find her as well as Stokes. Also, the game called me a monster because I took some of Stokes' bullets. Not really relevant, just kind of made me laugh. I eventually found Stokes hiding at his home. Don't really know how I missed him. The old woman was the two's employer. She killed Squint after the two had a row, and Stokes did not mean to kill the art dealer, which I believe. So I said I'd let him go and made my way back to Throgmorton. But Reed again just fucking tells Throgmorton the killer's name and says that he was found dead. I feel like saying that O'Connell killed him would have been better, but put the blame on the already dead man. That way the kid gets off whatever the fuck. Also, Throgmorton offered me the second half of the job to find the mirror. He gave me an access key to his father's records. I found a picture of Throgmorton's mom. In a different document, I found mention of Throgmorton's father's first wife, Bethany. It mentions she was checked into an asylum as Throgmorton's father wanted a divorce. I'm headed there to ask further. I asked the front desk to see her, but she had broken out. I walked into her room and there were smashed mirrors all over. This was making more sense by the minute. Next to her bed was a newspaper talking of her first child with Throgmorton's father being pronounced dead. So, during one of Bethany's walks, she took the chance to hire Stokes and Squint to steal a mirror that was connected to Throgmorton's father, her ex-husband. After killing Squint, she returned here, and upon seeing something inside the mirror, she went to a place called Randall Glassworks, which is our next stop. Hey, I found a reference to that book I fucking hate. Also, apparently Bethany would speak to her dead child Hammond through the mirrors, but why does she need this specific mirror? Okay, my theory about this whole thing was that Francis Throgmorton had sex with an ape in 1891, producing a child, Robert Throgmorton. Once he got back, either he or Robert killed his firstborn Hammond. Francis used this as an excuse to lock Bethany in the asylum so he could leave that bit of his old life behind and continue on with his attempt to create a superior bloodline. Inside Randall Glassworks, I met a group of people named Bethany. Nope. Inside Randall Glassworks, I met a group of people that knew Bethany. Apparently Bethany is here and locked in a storeroom by a wild beast. I killed the beast, got inside, and I did not find her. It turns out my theory is kinda correct. Francis Throgmorton did kill the way for Robert, his preferred heir, but he did not kill him. Francis stuffed Hammond in something called the Mirror Ways. So Bethany really was talking to Hammond through the mirrors, and now she's gone to join him. Throgmorton seemed to know that Hammond was trapped in the mirrors by his father and wanted to purchase the mirror to try to save him. Inside the mirror storeroom, I found a search warrant for Randall's arrest, so I suppose I should see what the archives can tell me. I got the mirror maker's last known location. I'm assuming I can make him talk about how to access the mirror ways. I found the mirror maker's home, and after some searching, I found this. A child's coffin, and a photo of the boy, and what I can only assume to be a gateway. Bethany set up a ritual mirror to keep the larger mirror safe, and once I destroyed the ritual mirror, that should lift the barrier, which worked, and I was able to speak to Bethany. She wants to return Hammond to his original body, the infant's body that has been dead for decades. I don't think this could possibly work, and even if it does work, I believe she will be trying to put a 40 or 50-year-old's mind into the body of a toddler. If that works, that is unnecessarily cruel, so I felt I had to take the mirror. Bethany pulled out a golden revolver and shot at me, but I was able to kill her first. I gave the mirror back to Throgmorton, and that was that. Fuck, that was a long quest. Throgmorton said he was going to try to find a suitable body for Hammond, and he mentioned the Pong Abelli. I broke the rules and looked up what that was. It does kind of fit. Back to the main quest. I went to the police archive to see if there were any records that were similar to the attack on the expedition. I found a document on a possible attack on a young woman by an Innsmouther with the same golden dagger and pendant at the fish market. Heading there, I met a woman named Anna, working for the same organization the Innsmouther was, the EOD. They're essentially a charity that looks out for Oakmont, giving out food and fixing up homes. If they're legit, Godspeed to them. I asked to meet the higher-ups, but I couldn't, as I needed to join them and gain a rank in the EOD. Figures. But I pressed on and asked about the job. I meant to find a thief that was trying to steal free fish. Given that this was my only way to press on, I did so. The guard at the warehouse didn't give me much to work on, just that the guy was bald. He said that while he was heading upstairs, he heard the guy and threw a harpoon at him. He was thrown to kill based on how deep the harpoon is in the box it hit. Also, I found a dead whale that had eaten a fish. Turns out the fish was poisoned. The intruder wasn't trying to steal everything, he was poisoning the fish. For some reason, the guard thought that the poisoned fish were his fault, even though he hadn't done anything wrong. The poisoner mentioned a professor, and Anna showed me where the university was. I had Sam here figure out what the poison was. Fucking course, it's ricin. Sam told me about who had access to the university's ricin, a man named Westerbrook, and possibly the man whose office is next to his, Professor George Cavendish. It's worth noting that in the uni halls there are posters saying that the EOD is banned, and in Cavendish's office he has a note that is calling the EOD K-Forsaken Degenerates. K-K-A-Y is another word for God in Oakmont. That's important. And the man has a key mold of the poison safe room's key. And he is bald. I found out where he lived and I broke into his house. I found out a couple things. 1, he was married to Anna and they had a child. 2, once the child was born, it wasn't Cavendish's, and Anna said it was blessed by the sea and claimed it for the EOD, causing their split. After this revelation, Reed falls unconscious and wakes up to a bald man yelling at us. But Reed turned the tables on that bullshit real quick. Cavendish says that the EOD are a cult and they're helping people only to spread their influence, recruit new members, and some of those people go missing, and that's how they got to Anna and her child. It does make some sense, and Cavendish combating their potential mind poisoning with literal poisoning puts forth the conversation about who's in the right here. Apparently what Anna meant by the child not being Cavendish is the child was afflicted with the Innsmouther syndrome, and that the EOD and the Innsmouthers' history begins around the same time, the early 19th century. Given the attack on the expedition, I'm inclined to believe that Cavendish is right about the EOD. They're the group that kidnapped Anna, and I may as well work with somebody who's working against them. When it comes to what the Mind Palace's options are on the pair, Anna and George Cavendish, I believe both options are true. Anna is doing honest charity work while covering for the EOD's plans of takeover, and George is a man who became so desperate after losing his wife to a cult that he's willing to kill innocents to achieve his goals. I'm allowed to lie to George and say I'll help him, then go right to Anna. If I do that, that'll end this real quick, and I can find out if they really do have Harriet and get her out. But that won't solve the overall issue with the EOD or the Deep One worshipping cult George says they are. And if I have George killed, that's a significant player against the EOD gone. I think if I can review all my options, I'll make a better decision. I thought about it for a bit and decided that if I just picked one of the options, it would cheapen the experience. If I just make it a coin flip, why bother? So I decided to tell Anna that George was the poisoner, as I felt like poisoning a city, regardless of motivation, is a shit thing to do, and if the EOD did have Harriet, I'd deal with it when it was confirmed. She sent me to go see a higher up, and fuck! Anna set me up. Anna set me up. Played me like a goddamn fiddle. Son of a bitch. Oh my god. When I went topside, a man named Fred told me that Professor Doe was kidnapped by the Order. Yes, I said Order, because whatever the fuck Anna told me EOD meant, it actually means Esoteric Order of Dagon. Because of course it does. Of course it's fucking the Order of Dagon. I'm an idiot and I got played. Fuck. God damn it. I went back to Throgmorton and called him a racist, and he gave me a lever-action shotgun. Honestly, Reed went into a really well-spoken diatribe about how Throckmorton's hate of the Innsmouthers was misplaced, and that the EOD gained the power that they have in large part because of his and other people in power's bigotry, and his immediate reaction of hearing that an organization comprised of Innsmouthers were behind the kidnapping, and him wanting to reburn Innsmouth on an individual level, was a major part of the issue. And then he gave me a lever-action shotgun. Back when I was at the uni, a guy told me about some missing books that he needed. I told him I'd look into them and get him to stop talking to me. But on a whim, I headed to the first location because it was nearby. Good God. The books these kids stole was about creating illusions so they didn't have to attend lectures. Yeah, we'll now have to attend another lecture again. One of the copies has the book. I found it in an illusory wall, and then the copies ran at me. One of the copies had a letter on them that implied that they were from a different world, and they intended to bring more of them into our world from theirs. That's a scary thought, but I mean, that shouldn't be happening. The second book was just an old man driven mad by the pages laid bare before him. On the way to the third book, a man asked me to find some corpses for him. Another quest in the log. I started up on Fred's request. He wanted me to find him a way out of Oakmont in return for Harry's location. He suggested looking at the paper for secret messages from a smuggling ring, so I started looking at the newspaper to see what I could see. I found some, awake. Headed over to see what it was about, met him at the biggest I've ever seen. He wanted me to get some photos of a crime scene. Then I spoke to the barkeep, and he gave me a courier job to prove I wasn't a snitch. Went looking for that crime scene stuff first. On the way to the second crime scene, I ran into the wrong house and found just a bunch of pictures of myself, Albert, and Lewis, some Phantom of the Opera looking motherfucker, some Mick, and an old man and a woman I hadn't met yet. Got to the second crime scene and I'm starting to notice some similarities. 1, both were killed with a single attack, and 2, both were a member of good standing with the Oakmont Photo Club, and they joined that club after the flood. Found the third body, the guy was also in good standing with the OPC, but I mean, based on the other bodies, I'm saying it wasn't a suicide. Also, you don't bleed from a hanging. Also, he couldn't have hung himself because there's nothing within reach for him to have been standing on. From the looks of it, the guy was stabbed, dragged over here, and then he was strung up by his attacker. Also, apparently our elevated friend was in some kind of relationship, sounded homosexual, with the bug-eyed cop who gave us this job. I headed out, but remembered I needed a photo. The universe took the chance and attempted to blind me, but I persevered. Okay, here's something interesting. I lost the bar. Like, I forgot how to get to the bar. There's not a place of interest marker. I almost looked it up too, but I didn't, and I remembered how I found it in the first place. You just look in the mission log and it tells you where. It's even specially marked. Also, there is a point of interest. Again, I'm just kind of fucking stupid. Wish I did this quest before I went diving. Maybe I would have remembered that I could take photos and not failed the fucking run. The cop looks like Steve Buscemi. That's what I'm getting from him. I'm great with faces, and he was reminding me of somebody. I love doing that. It's the eyes. Headed to the place the bartender told me about. I'm looking for a courier, but I'm not holding out hope for a pulse, you know. Found a skeleton tied up. Looks like the person was doused with gas and set alight. Hope he's not our man. Found the hooch the barkeep wanted, so I got something out of all this at least. Unsurprisingly, the bones were the courier. He came down here to get the whiskey, but was found, beaten, and set alight by some goons led by Vito Corleone on wheels. Let the barman know the kid he hired is long dead, and he mentioned a man called The Boss. Normally the boss is a woman, but hey, good for him then. Apparently I have to be dealing with him to get Fred his ticket out of here. Met the old man. He's dressed like Albert Tenpenny, and he sounds like an asshole, so I'm worried about how this convo is gonna go. Man's name is Brutus Carpenter. That's cute. And he wanted me to track down a guy that tried to kill him. Story goes, guy woke up in a body bag, and when he got home, he saw somebody else wearing his face in his home. Guy mentioned a dinner he had a week before the body of Jane Doe reenactment, so I'm guessing he was poisoned, but they got the dose wrong. Also, the imposter him was apparently killed, but nothing changed. Some suspects, but he can't narrow anybody down. I've got 2 addresses to check out, the Carpenter Mansion and the City Crematorium. The first stop was the mansion. Apparently the Carpenters are handing out supplies to the needy. Good on them, I suppose. I got into the mansion posing as a volunteer, and that led me to a worker who had stolen some food. This brought up an issue that the younger Carpenter needed to solve. So I spoke to him. He's the Phantom of the Opera guy I mentioned earlier, and the older boss man was the old dude from the pictures. And in the room I was with the boss man, I saw the woman from the other photos. The fuck is going on here? Also, the dude got his facial injury in the war, so I kind of feel bad about making fun of him. But it's also a video game, so I don't give a fuck. I made a wheelchair joke. I don't really care. It's fine. I went back to the worker and told him that everything got squared away, and he said he was glad the Carpenters had changed. He mentioned there were thieves and murderers back in the day. That didn't really shock me, seeing that the older boss man ordered a man to be set on fire like it was nothing. After a bit of a trek, I found a key to Brutus's room, and yeah, the wrong guy's still here. Also, there's Goya's favorite painting. You know that painting was never named? People exploring Goya's house after he died just found that in his dining room. Before the old boss man Brutus lost his memory, he met up with an ancient church's high priest. This whole thing's getting weirder by the second. I've explored the mansion in full, now for the crematorium. A while back I noticed that all the boats were called the Cyclops too, and in Reed's hotel room you can read his diary, and it said that he was in a boat called the Cyclops when things went pear-shaped, and he was found a few months later raving mad on an island. And after that, he could do his weird mind bullshit. I'm mostly focusing on the Cyclops part, because it got me thinking, if this game is going to end with it all being an illusion, I'm going to shit myself. I found a shift schedule in the creamery, and Mr. James Warren was meant to be on duty when Brutus was supposed to be cremated. I don't know what that does for me just yet. Looking back on the scene, somebody brought the old man here, but he woke up, conked James Warren out, and ran. I gotta find James to find out who brought the old man here. He's probably at the hospital. For some reason, I can only find him after I looked him up in the registry. I guess he was just taking a shit. Warren told me the guys who wanted him to burn Brutus were priests, and they followed the Lord of the Woods like this is fucking thief. So I gotta find out what fucked up religion that is so I can find their god. Found a place that mentions the Woods of the Lords, local church called Redemption. Got the address and headed there. Inside the church I found this pulsing mass of flesh and tentacles and a human head and body. If this is their god, I can see why Jesus is more appealing. This god is hotter though. You didn't hear that? In the statue I found a frog-esque creature with a gaping maw, like that one seen from The Thing. Same slime as the crematorium. Dead man holding keys to a very rusty door. Oh, you can suck my tranny dick game. Fuck. The cult members went diving, and this fella here left me a suit. God damn it. I got stuck on a ledge and pressed every button except the climb button. Well done, me. I'm glad these sections are short, because they're kind of lame. Holy shit, that's a set piece. And with the half-tap, was talking about their fecund mother, how their reach is ever-stretching, how they have Brutus' son in their grasp, and how they will not be struck down as their mother replenishes their ranks quicker than any man can kill them. Once I promised to kill their fecund mother, the mouth opened. I killed her followers and started on her. Tossed my grenades into the maw, because what the fuck else was gonna hurt it? It's a mouth. Then I found out the explosives it was spewing could be picked up and tossed. It was pretty simple from there. I found a note talking about Graham again, and more copies of Brutus at the bottom of... I know it's... I don't even know what this thing is. It kind of looks like Goofy from this angle. I found a note talking about the Daughter of the Woods. It mentions... fuck. So I'm assuming that's the Daughter of the Woods, and that's what I'm looking at. Get me the fuck out of here. I went to confront Graham about the everything. He admitted to trying to kill his father and says that he wishes to help the city and needs his father's place to do it. He told me his dad would never change, which I kind of agree with. I hope that Graham will be able to resist the cult and he will help the city. I went to kill the old man and I fucked up the dialogue. Went back, had it on the go, things went much better. Keep in mind, okay, listen, keep in mind, all of this, me meeting the Graham, that wasn't even intentional. Me meeting Graham and his father, me killing an old god, that was just so I could get some dickhead named Fred a ticket out of the city so he could tell me where Harriet is. Okay, that took way too fucking long, but Fred gave me an address to a meeting where the other Grand family, the Blackwoods, and a battle rifle. How much you want to bet this is a grand? Ah, damn it. It's a single shot bolt action. It works for me. Fuck. Then I got to these mystic tomes out of the way, and this other quest too. One of them's in this hospital. I've come here a few times and I could not get past this brick wall, so I got pissed and did something else. Also, the game crashed. First time that happened. Weird. The third tome I found was Cassilda's song from The King in Yellow. I feel like I should mention that. I've listened to The King in Yellow's first few chapters before, but I've always stopped before I got too far. I need to give it a fair go. I've heard it's fucking phenomenal. The last tome I found was after a boss fight with the One Reborn's annoying cousin, and I got the Necronomicon. I went back to the hospital. There's a back entrance in the ceiling this whole time. I swear I did not look up, and I'm just such a fucking dolt. It's oh my god. Okay. I got the tome that vexed me this whole fucking game, and got the coolest outfit for me specifically. Look at her! Look at her! She moves! Oh my god. Look at her! I'm gonna be honest. The octopus thing, that started... The name came from the name came from my base in Metal Gear Solid 5. That was the first name I thought of, Octopus INC, and I thought that was funny. But I have cultivated such a genuine appreciation for octopi, and I love them. And just this thing, just sitting there on my head and moving its little tentacles. Oh my god, I love her so fucking much. Okay. Alright, yeah, whatever. Anyway. Also, I found all the notes around Oakmont just for shits and giggles, you know? Nothing interesting happened there, just collecting. Now that all that's done, and I have nothing else to do, on to the Blackwoods. Instead of Evernote Blackwood, I found some KKK fuckheads at the meeting place. Evernote was here, but he got kidnapped, and the Ensmouthers he was with were murdered and left as a warning. Fucking A. Okay. I'm checking out the police reports to see if any of them have been reported, and I'll go check them out. Got some clues as to where Evernote was taken. Found one, the Orion Club. I think this place got turned into a Klan hideout. Found a guy who got fucked up by a prisoner they were holding. I tried to kill him, but the game wouldn't let me. The Orion was full of dead monsters and some Stygians, but hey, they're alright. Looks like they were torturing Blackwood. And then I met their wizard. Jesus Christ. Yeah, show me a magic trick, you dense motherfucker. You stupid racist cunt. Fuck you and your bullshit. Hopefully they'll put an end to their wannabe Nazi bullshit. And I got an address before I shot him. Went there and got a cutscene to read going fucking nuts, which drained my sanity in-game. And it gave me a Mind Palace clue, which means the madness to this place is causing that effect. Found out that Blackwood's defected from the EOD and is going after Harriet, and he's taken the small army he's gathered into the sea. Fuck. At least we got another great set piece. And we finally found Blackwood in this place. I feel like I should mention this is apparently meant to be the Temple of Dagon. He's also come to free Harriet. She's one of the few driven by visions, and she could either save or doom the world. Also, he told me there's some frescoes in the temple that I can study. I don't know what the fuck a fresco is, if I'm being honest. Apparently, it's a drawing. The first one shows the dreamer's hidden daughter, bound in an eldritch prison to never leave. The second shows those who would free the daughter, passing on the dreamer's seed. A turning cycle, those carrying the seed being drawn to Kythinagar by visions. The third and final shows the seal of Kythinagar opening the way. The daughter shall be freed, and from her fetid womb the dreamer shall spawn once more. Getting through the frescoes and attempting to understand the writings, I found Harriet. Harriet tells me about the cycle. A great flood brings about destruction, and a great threat is allowed to emerge from Kythinagar. The gates of Kythinagar are neither open nor closed, but by the cycle's end they shall either be one or the other. Those led by visions are the few, and they play a role in the cycle. Harriet and I are the ones with the visions. We have the burden of dealing with the cycle. Prophecy can mean one of two things. Only one may succeed, or only one may survive. Every time I've tried to appeal to better nature, I get fucked over. Graham donated to the EOD after I gave him power. Anna set me up to get killed after I put my trust in her. Me trying to save Harriet will only result in more death. The risk is too great if two of the chosen live, so I must kill her. And I did just so, and touch the seal. I wake up to see Johannes Vanderberg looking over me. The seal is missing, and I gotta find it. Not being in the temple seems to be returning my mind. Not normal, but allows me to be more level. I was brought here by a hospital regular, a drunk named Billy Drummond. He's a regular at the Seven Oaks. I also woke up with a note from Joy the librarian. I feel like she should be more important to the story, given she's all over the game's store page. I'm gonna go see her. Joy's being threatened by a woman. She wouldn't tell me what she looked like or she'd be killed. I went to check out her flat. The basement was full of monsters, and one of the rooms had a gutted dog on the ground. Joy used to be a singer, apparently, good enough to put on shows. Somebody broke into Joy's flat, killed her dog, skinned it, and made a teddy bear from its skin as a threat. Somebody next door took a picture, but the camera's burnt up. The neighbor's dead. Died looking like he saw the devil. I found a note talking about a woman named Granny Weaver who silenced Joy. I asked Joy about her, but she wouldn't say anything. So I got my library card out and looked up a name I found in that note from the neighbor's place. I got Granny Weaver's supposed address and her lore. It's odd, but it ties into Anna's current condition. Granny Weaver punishes those who spread Oakmont secrets, and Joy was doing that according to a note I found from her parents. I went to her old address and found evidence of a summoning. Two mirrors placed across from each other with her sign written in blood in the middle. Some people summoned her and attempted to kill her. Let's see if I can summon her as well. That was easier than I thought it'd be. According to the legend, she'll be back in 100 years, but that's a good enough time for me. Didn't find or take the seal. Evernote. He dragged me to the surface, and when Billy Drennan and the Yellow Kings, that's very cute, found him, he killed them, and he got the seal. I hope this manor stays open once I'm done here, because there's like a lot of good loot in here. Like 17 bits of gunpowder in one box, so that'll look good. In the basement of the manor, I found a sacrificial altar and a John Wayne Gacy-style grave where Evernote buried the bodies. In a locked room, I read a note under the watch of a painting that was 100% looking back. The note said that Evernote was thought to be a chosen, like Harriet and myself, and the Blackwoods have chosen their family cannery to be their exodus point. I may have done this quest out of order, as I'm only getting the location of the manor now, despite how I've already been there. Also, the exodus of the Blackwoods happened just after the flood did, and Evernote stayed behind for reasons unknown. So what I can make out is that Evernote was conducting experiments to draw the Dreamer Seed out of suspected chosen. It never worked, possibly because he didn't have a good enough conduit, which is why he was searching for the seal. Now that he has the seal, he's gone to the cannery, which is where I'm going as soon as I get the address. First try, hell yeah. Some people beat me to the cannery, Yellow Kings again. This guy says he's going to help me find the seal before I go insane. He mentions his boss, who will find me when all is said and done. Their boss is obviously Johannes. I feel like that's not even a secret. Evernote's got the seal and is convinced that he can fix his curse, remove the Dreamer Seed, and stop the madness. I gotta let him try. The men downstairs will kill Evernote if they see him, but they got here too late. I found the seal in the basement, and when I grabbed it, gunshots rang out upstairs. Evernote got here and killed the Yellow Kings, and we got to talking, finally. He told me my options. He can extract the Dreamer Seed and stop me from going mad, and he will take the burden of being chosen, allowing me to help him or leave the city. Or, I could accept being chosen and do what must be done. Subverting a prophecy never goes well for anybody, but it's usually a fun ride along the way. Oh, for fuck's sake, game. Okay, hold on, let's run that back. After the vision, I woke up and Evernote's dead. So, I don't know if I'm still slowly succumbing to madness, or if he removed the Dreamer Seed, but because he wasn't chosen, his mind shattered. I gotta get to Johannes. Ah, fuck. That's just great. Johannes was murdered when he was hosting a seance. His guests survived and called the police. So I gotta talk to that man. Based on the visions, I'm pretty sure Billy Drummond killed Johannes. The game says he was using the same service revolver round I am, but he wasn't. He was using the same pistol rounds I'm using, .38s, but Johannes was killed with a revolver, and my revolver rounds are 44-40. Odd that. Seems to me like this guy was trying to set me up. The hat that flew off the murderer's head looks like my starting hat. Best get out of here, but before that let me try something. In a building named for his crown, the Yellow King was put down. May he forever rest in Carcosa. I do more, but I'm being arrested. Frank, one of the Carpenter's guys, came to get me, said Graham put on my bail. Let's him to do that, let's go see him. I stopped by the Throckmorton's place to let him know Harriet's dead, and... Albert's alive? Like... I'm pretty sure that's Hammond in Albert's dead body. Like, and instead of Albert's corpse in the coffin, it's a cake. I'm definitely still going mad. I can't believe Albert was cake. Oh my god! Graham told me the witness's name, Milton Pierce, and he gave me a Chicago typewriter. Fuck yes. God damn. Milton had an interview in the newspaper, and I'm going to try to use that to get his address. I went to the newspaper's office to look him up, but I got another quest. A man named Sims left a bunch of notes on places fishmen gold is washed up in Oakmont, and I've got to chase down a man who was mauled by a tiger. The tiger one I got from old Tachkovsky here. The man who was attacked by a tiger was taken to the asylum because that shit freaked him out. He told me that he and his friends were meeting in a building, heard the roar and scattered. I went to the building. Turns out Claude and his buddies were Klansmen. Some kid broke into the building, disguised himself as a tiger, and scared the racists off when there was a loud roar and some fake claws. Also, in that building there's a hidden altar and a Cthulhu statue. But that's not important, I guess. The kid lives in Southern Coverside, so I can find him and get an interview. Kid became a vigilante, trying to scare criminals, and I can respect that. I got my interview, so that's that. There's an achievement that says complete every challenge Oakmont has to offer. I don't know if that's like a Dark Souls style unlock every achievement, or it has to do with like every side quest thing. I don't really know, but I'm doing every side quest I get. Also, this fucking quest is a Smash Mouth reference, god damn it. Next quest for the newspaper, we're looking for the Bear Jew outside a Czech restaurant. The head waiter of the place flipped his shit and started ranting about lost silverware, so I went and found it for him. He had been stealing it, and I used that to get him to let me upstairs, tell me about the golem. Upstairs I found an embroidered handkerchief, initials VB. No, it couldn't be him. Never mind. The robbers were let in by a woman with the keys, then hacked the golem from its base and they fled. The only people who have keys for the joint are the owner and his daughter Vilma. I went into their home, and the housekeeper was ill-dressed for work. I'll say that. Well, actually, maybe I'm not the best judge on proper work attire. Anyways, I found a letter hidden among the books, and some evidence that this isn't a very happy home. I did some more work for the only Jewish woman in Oakmont, and she realized I was a detective, and she gave me a key to the master bedroom, where I found worse evidence on the home situation. If I find this man, I'm killing him. Hey, Vilma, what the fuck are these statues doing? Getting real too close into Lovecraft country and not the fun stuff. I've got reason to believe that the golem has gold inside of it and that Vilma and her lover Glenn stole it to run off together. That's what I'm working with. I've found reason to suspect that some fuck shit happened at Glenn's base, and I found Vilma upstairs. Okay, I think this got lost in translation somewhere, but she said that the golem, the clay thing, is a man that thinks and feels and she loves him. Like, that just makes my head hurt. Like, I'm a very accepting person. I kind of have to be, but that shit really caught me off guard. So Bartosz, the owner of the restaurant, pervert guy, not fun pervert, like fucked up pervert, he took all of the gold out of the golem, so now it's just clay. Oh. Never mind. Holy shit.
So, you're the golem of her.
I am grateful.
I have some questions.
Speak.
How did Vilma bring you to life?
Secret knowledge broke the seal. I was awakened. Before that, I slumbered.
You slumbered.
I dreamt of clay sheep. What do you dream of?
The fucking clay man made a dual robot stream of electric sheep joke. I fucking love this guy. The guy can't feel pain, but he can love, and he will continue to love Vilma. I'd love to know his name. He never says his name. I'd love to know it, but hey, you know what? Fucking say la vie, Have a good life, guys. Just let me kill her father, please. Alright, I'm thinking there's no reason to do any more side missions, because I have every gun and perk I care about, but Jesus, that was a reward in and of itself. I kept the golem secret, no sense in ruining he and Vilma's lives. Started running around looking for those valuables the guys afraid of Innsmouthers wrote to the newspaper about. Okay, I've been thinking. I'm just going to start ranting about this, okay? So, I know how the people afflicted with Innsmouth syndrome got that way. The Esoteric Order of Dagon got them that way, or am I wrong about that? Did the EOD do that, or is that just a result of the flood, and that the EOD took advantage of what had happened? But, well, no, I've learned that the flood is a recycle of the Dreamer's hidden daughter nearly escaping. So the EOD understood what was happening and used the Innsmouthers' affliction to their advantage and spread their cult across most of the Innsmouthers. Like, before Reed got to Oakmont, Innsmouth was burned down by the cops, and they had to immigrate and assimilate into Oakmont. But not every Innsmouther is a member of the EOD, so, like, what the fuck? Most Innsmouthers are just people going about their business, and I've never met a woman with Innsmouther syndrome. I knew that Anna, the bitch who tried to have me killed, her child was given to the sea or whatever because an Innsmouther fathered that child. Is that how every Innsmouther after the initial flood got that way? Is every Innsmouther descended from the start of the cycle, and both normal attraction and the EOD keep the gene pool going? Or is like the entirety of Innsmouth, which isn't on my map, is it this giant black area up here in Reed Heights because it got burned down? There's a road called Innsmouth Road that divides Reed Heights, so is Eastern Reed Heights formerly Innsmouth? I fucking doubt that, because then Old Grove would be bordering Innsmouth, and Old Grove is where Throgmorton lives. And we all fucking know he hates Innsmouthers for some goddamn reason. So why would Oakmount cops burn down the city on a separate landmass, and why would the Innsmouthers immigrate to the place that burned down their home? Have I got any of this right? Like, I think that the theory that the Innsmouthers descended from the original flood makes most sense, because the flood happened after 1919, and I think it's like, I don't know, 1928 maybe? And that's not long enough for there to be dozens of Innsmouthers. If every person in Innsmouth was afflicted with the Innsmouther syndrome, and it was a town of, say, let's say 200 people. If every person in Innsmouth was afflicted with Innsmouther syndrome, and it was a town of, say, like 200 people, and Oakmont is the city of rapidly dwindling 1,000. The Innsmouthers merging into Oakmont would not be enough to be the amount I've seen walking around, talked to, killed, and seen dead. So, like, what the fuck? Like, how much of this am I getting wrong? I know from prior knowledge that in other Lovecraft media, Innsmouth is its own place. I don't know if it's like an island, but it is a place. I get that they're normal people that have been changed by an old god's influence, but where are they from in this game? I get that the Innsmouthers are from Innsmouth, but where in the Sam fuck is that? This is what I mean when I call these runs more cerebral than anything. It's fun to think about this shit, but I just get really tired. After I committed more crimes in the name of journalism, it's time to go clear my name for my previous crimes. Inside his home, I found a note from Throgmorton and a note from Anna Cavendish, talking about how Milton shows compassion to the Innsmouth descendants. I was fucking right! Took me a bit to get there, but I was right. Fuck yeah! Sorry, I'm just not often right about things like that. Also, I learned that it's not like 1928. It's like a few months after the initial flood happened. So, yeah. Milton's probably at the city hall. Also, the dude's got a ready-made speech that ends in, "Make Oakmont great again." He's got a propaganda poster of himself as Caesar, and he's reading Machiavelli's The Prince. There's a lot pointing to that I should not trust this guy. The conversation with Milton went from, "Hey, I didn't kill Johannes," to, "Mr. Reed, please kill my mother." I wonder if I can tell the police that he just gave me poison to kill his mom with. I guess not. Wouldn't really go far, to be honest. But then I could tell his mom. That won't get me anywhere. Yeah, sorry about this, ma'am. I didn't even need to do that. Milton said that the guy who killed Johannes was a newcomer, and I knew he was married, so I could have looked for a marriage license. Fuck. Yeah, at least my name's clear. Oh shit, he does look like me. Holy shit, is this guy a double of me, like fucking the double of Brutus? Oh, I guess not. He's just here from Rhode Island. But his family's been kidnapped, and that's why he killed Johannes. I knew that. And he wants me to get him back. When he knows that they're safe, he'll turn himself in. Yeah, fair enough. Guy's name is Glenn. He's got a wife and a kid. Seems like a good guy put in a shit spot. Desperation can drive a man to do some fucked up shit, like ruin a good yellow suit. Oh, and kill a man. One of the kidnappers got pushed to the floor, had a hard fall. The blood must have called over some monsters who either finished him off or just ate what was left. On his body, I found an address of what I assume their hideout is, so I'm headed there. Met up with Billy Drummond again there. He's holding the family hostage. Things got violent and I pulled a Valentine's massacre on him. This is the house that had all the weird-ass pictures of me in it, except now it's got a Reanimator reference. Also, Glenn's family, them too. Now to close my deal with Glenn. He gives me the gun and his written confession. Now I can give it to the police and clear my name, or I can do something else. See, I found some very bloody clothes at Milton's place. To have that amount of blood on you, you need to be in a few feet from the murder. So, if I put this gun in that bloody clothes basket, take a picture, well, I'll say I was investigating a lead and found the damning evidence. He tried to frame me, so I'm just returning the favor. After I gave the evidence I had to Frank, I got a weird feeling. The sort of feeling I get when I ever to put a mystery together. Then I heard Johannes' voice. He told me to go to the Devil's Reef. Sure enough, he's alive. Somehow. He asked me why I did what I did. Ensure that Milton would be killed for a crime he didn't do. I did it because he's a cunt who went against me. Then he told me that with the seal of Kythinagar, I can open the gate of the Dreamer's daughter and allow her to birth the Dreamer anew. that I can stop all the sickness, the war, and the cycles proceed as they should. I was always a big fan of letting the fire fade, so why not let the old girl out after so long, you know? As much as I love this old suit, I like Clara more. Joe Berg, I can't believe this is the first time I've called him that. He sent me to work with an archaeologist. When I walked in the building and I saw a dead man, I was attacked by an undead Mayan. Some Mayan priestess that can't die, apparently, and she was the keeper of the key to Kythenagar. Of course she was. So I need to find her. There's been rumors of a vampire in the Salvation Harbor, so that's probably my best lead. Also, Joseph told me about himself. His illness he got from flies in Mayan temples. His tattoos were given to him by Indians when he was exploring a lost period in the jungle. Why does everything lead back to fucking Marathon? And he believes that underneath Oakmont is an entrance to Zabalba, the land of the dead that houses ancient evil Mayan gods. Let's start with the vampire. Somehow that seems the least convoluted, especially given the Marathon thing. Sometimes this game just throws so much shit at you, it's hard to dodge, and you take a bad hit, you know?
Sorry?
That's when you take a couple Tylenol. Anyway, I found the bodies, all drained of blood like the first few episodes of Dexter. I gotta get back to watching that show. When Usha was in the middle of murdering the Innsmouthers, a man named Raymond tried to What? Some guy named Raymond tried to shoot her and she hypnotized him. I found a note in his bag saying that he lived in the Devil's Reef. Based on the diving gear in Raymond's flat, we're going swimming again. Thanks to Yahtzee, I've been expecting 5 trips to the sea and we're getting close to that. Shit, that may not have been a Reanimator reference. So Joseph resurrected Usha, tortured her until she died, and then revived her again like that fucking episode of Lie to Me. Then she got loose, and things went pear-shaped. Raymond showed up and offered me a deal with Usha. Oh, so Raymond is Usha. Okay, that makes sense. She wants me to kill Joseph. There's a movie on Netflix. It's called The Old Guard. Odd movie, but it's a fun watch. It's about this group of people that can't die. They've got, like, Wolverine-style regeneration/resurrection. There's a scene in the movie where a woman gets put into an Iron Maiden. It's chained shut and thrown into the ocean, and it shows her screaming, drowning, coming back to life, and dying over and over again. That scene takes place in the 1700s, and the movie takes place in modern day. That scene bothered me so much that when I went to sleep that night, I had a hard time breathing. I'm killing Joshua. Now we gotta get to her lair, underwater. Let's get this over with. I wanted to look at the baby, but Reed started to shit his pants, so I had to stare at the floor a bit. Got to Usha and told me a bunch of different shit. Now I've got to find pieces of a different monolith to attract the seal, and the fire servants know where they are. What are the fire servants? Great question. But she told me what she could, and I left. Okay, so apparently we're nearing the end. There's an outfit I don't have, meaning there's a side mission I haven't done, so I'm gonna run around different places and see if I can find it. It's about real estate, that's all I know. I found this historical heritage quest, and fucking I'm ready to be done. Let's go free an old god. Apparently there's a chance I won't die entering Kythenagar. Hopefully that's not true. I headed to the first monolith to see if I could get the first K-Finger, and I think I found the fire worshippers. These guys cleanse themselves to be reborn in the new world. To them it's kind of a double positive, because if the cycle doesn't restart, then they avoid another calamity, and if the dreamer's daughter is freed, then they get to avoid that nightmare. But when they do get but when do they get reborn? Because those are like the two options. Okay, wait. So they mean restart the cycle. When the cycle gets restarted, they aren't freeing the daughter. I think freeing the daughter allowed the cycle to progress as it was meant to, and humanity interfering is what caused the calamities. So freeing the daughter would allow the cycle to progress as it should have, and allow us to begin again, like in Age of Light and Dark. But restarting the cycle is just keeping the daughter imprisoned. That shit's useless, we gotta let the old girl out. I found the first K-Finger, and a set of notes on where the other two monoliths are. One of them rose beneath the house of a man that found treasure, and the second rose at a place where 3 identical infants were born. It said people wrote about the treasure man, so I'm headed to the Chronicle, and I looked for the infants that'll be at City Hall so I can get a look at their birth certificate. Got that, and I got the treasure house. I went to look at the place where the kids were born, and some people stole the rock that had the K-Finger in it. I think these guys were trying to eat the monolith. I got the second K-Finger. The fuck was that? Oh, you can bite me, game. Enough of that weeping angel shit. The next monolith is underwater, because I can't catch a break. With all the K-Fingers, I can access the central monolith and descend into Kythenagar. The seal is in place, and fuck. This looks familiar.
It's a shame you'll die here, Reed. The city has far worse men than you. lot of people want to leave Oakmont, kid. Few ever succeed.
I want none of this to be real. To wake up in my bed in Boston, eat real food, drink good coffee, and forget it all.
Let me be frank. You ain't welcome. You slip up, don't cross a T or dot an I, and I'll treat you like every other criminal in here, newcomer.
Please help me die. I can't. I just can't.
No mercy, boys. He's been asking for this.
There is nothing more vile than futility. Watching this happen again and again and doing nothing. We are the agents of change, Mr. King.
Please hurry, Reed. We can still save this city.
You can't end the suffering. The cycle will go on. You can't change who you are.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
We're doomed to rot in this Borg.
There is a cycle. This has all happened before. She wants to be free, but she must not be, or else it all ends.
Destiny waits for no man, Charles. Decide now whether this ends in salvation or blood.
I choose annihilation. The end of all cycles. Let everything die. I accept my fate. Unlike the cowards who came before me. My hidden daughter. I am coming. I want none of this to be real. To wake up in my bed in Boston, eat real food, drink good coffee, and forget it all.